Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 145. David Caha, leading the charge in data-driven marketing and predictive analytics. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by David Caha. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here.
More enthusiasm.
It's really good to be here, Matt. I'm so
Awesome.
excited to finally do this with you. I know we've been talking about it for a long time.
Yes. So David and I, actually, we go way back, well, a few years. We were introduced by a mutual friend, Eric, right?
Yep, Eric Serhermo.
That's who introduced us, and we'll talk about what happened after that.
All good news.
But David is he has an agency, Ad Science Lab, and he does. What do you do over there?
Not much. No, just kidding. I'm the managing director, and we're a one-stop shop data-driven marketing firm, mainly and focusing on analytics, with social strategy, content creation, science-focused, and blog writing for sure, and some web dev.
Some web dev,
but we just kind of get forced into it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you do other things. You would tell us a little bit about your story, because that is the first thing we do when we have a guest on the first time, is we start with your origin story. We figure out who this guy David is and how he became this awesome person he is today. And so we'll go back, as far as you want to go. It can be a short version, long version, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became an entrepreneur or business person, how you got into business, and what that looked like.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, but the way I got into it was I was in academia for quite some time. While I loved science, and I still do love science and the academic rigor, I felt that I wanted a little bit more control of what I was doing. And I mean, initially, it's actually I wanted to be able to work wherever I wanted to, and one of the things that is well known in academics and maybe not outside of academia is that you you certainly go where the work is. So if that's Florida or New Brunswick or Washington or wherever it may be, you just kind of go where the job takes you. And I really wanted to stay here in Boulder, Colorado, because I just love being here. My family's here, and I, spend considerable energy moving here and kind of building a life here. So that was the original goal of kind of entrepreneurship. And so I essentially did, consulting in the digital health space for a while because of my science background. That went pretty well. And then we decided to start a family. And while the consulting was great for just, making money, I was building a career there. It wasn't really stable enough at the time to raise and support a family. So I ended up getting a job at the University of Colorado, where I got my master's, and then I looped a PhD into it. But during that time, I was still doing consulting, and I ended up getting into a position where I was a president of a health and wellness company, and one of the things I did was build a digital marketing team. And after a few years, I exited that company, sold my shares, and the folks who worked in the digital marketing department wanted to come with me. So essentially, I was like left in a position where I had a company. I had just successfully sold a number of shares, so I had some money, and there's not a lot of scientists who run digital marketing companies. So I figured this was a great entrepreneurial kind of effort and start.
Yeah,
So
that could
yeah,
really
that's the short version.
differentiate you a little bit. There,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's essentially the short version of how I got into entrepreneurship. I mean, I did construction way back when, and kind of always kind of liked to work for myself as much as I could. So
You like the freedom of
having a
kind of and be able to do what you want to do, and
and I don't think I did really well as an employee either, which is probably a common thread.
yes,
A common story for many entrepreneurs.
yeah,
So never did really well as an employee. I mean, in academia, I fit in pretty well because I was just lucky enough to have positions where the expectations were high, but as far as like day-to-day management of myself was pretty low. So I was able to have a lot of freedom, but with that came a ton of work and a ton of responsibility. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into entrepreneurship and fell in love with it.
entrepreneurship. Really. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't swear on this podcast, but let's throw that out. No. Awesome. So you have this the scientific background, academia. You're now you got a taste for running an agency, and now what did you end up doing? How did you spin that off? So you had these people you knew, they wanted to start an agency with you. This was a conversation, and you just launched it.
More or less, yeah. I mean, I in the past, my I probably wouldn't have thought I would be driving or running a digital marketing firm or agency, but I just had, I was basically left in a position where I had a bunch of people or a few people who wanted to keep going, and that's essentially how I got into it.
And yeah, it's a different, like, you've seen yourself as a specific type of person, a persona showing up in the world, and to be a digital marketing agency guy, that's different. That's different. You're still holding on to that. How can I still hold on to my scientific persona a little bit? How can I blend the two or something?
Yeah, definitely. That's an ongoing challenge and opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there aren't that many of us.
It's a weird. I would imagine that would be pretty rare. Somebody
it's
that
super rare. I mean,
went on this and suddenly you're running an agency or want to go in that direction. That's yeah.
Yeah, it is super rare, and I mean it's so rare that, like, I mean, as far as in academia, at least in the biomedical sciences, where my expertise lies, there's rarely ever any talk of marketing or self-promotion. I mean, most students and most academics don't even really know how to write a resume. They can provide a CV, a curriculum vitae, which is, 15, 20, 30, 40, or even 60 pages once you're later stage in career. But to summarize your professional experience and make it, try to get conversion, quote unquote, conversion out of that resume is an experience that not many people have, for sure.
So how did that go? How did you start? Did you have an idea of the market you'd go after, or the vertical? Like, how are you positioning yourself as an agency at that stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. The vertical or the market we were going after and still go after is kind of the health and wellness space, because the scientific background in that doctorate really opens doors. Of course, we work with clients from all types of industries at this point, and probably in future points as well. But the PhD really does open doors as far as any pharma company or any health company. And then on the analytics side of things, there's not a lot of, how do I say this? Like, I guess, statistical rigor in analytics. I mean, analytics in general are poorly configured for most firms and businesses running any sort of digital marketing effort.
Mm-hmm.
But the lack of statistics is almost ubiquitous. I have yet to run into a company that uses actual stats or statistical methods to assess, what's real and what's not. So, that might be TMI here, but anyway, the academic background really, since I do have some decent and strong background in data science and statistics, that also opens doors. So right now it's basically a door opener, and again, kind of trying to target the health and wellness space.
Don't mind me. I lost my pen, the tip of my pen. So I lost my ability.
That's great.
I lost my ability when you have an electronic pen and the tip comes off.
Oh yeah.
It's no good. Doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So how long have you been using an electronic pen?
Probably this past year. I kind of moved over to that. For a long time, I used Rocket Books. I was, if you've heard of those, where you take notes in this thing and then you can like either microwave it or wipe it off and start over. It's like comes in like just like little notebooks and but I got tired of it because you need to scan it in. There's a way to scan it in. They have an app, so you scan in all your notes. I'm like, I did that for a few years. And I would still stack up, and then I would have to do it all in like one sitting for like 2 hours. But this is nice because I have nice I use Notability, put in there, and all my notes are in there. We have our own note for today for me to keep track of things. Anyway, so back on track.
No tech tips from Matt.
Yeah. Seriously, because I always and I like that you can color code it and stuff. Like I'll have some bullets for us, and then I turn and change the color to red, so that I can keep track of things I might want to circle back to on our conversation, little notes, things I learn about you.
That's great.
So so you got into analytics, which is interesting, which makes sense, right? So you're kind of bringing your scientific background to bear in an agency environment. And that mindset and that mind probably could be very valuable for companies to be able to, I don't know if it would lend to processes, just the way you look at numbers and all that. Is that kind of baked into how you approach your agency now?
Absolutely. Yeah, we rarely engage clients or leads without having a conversation about analytics and measurement. It's absolutely the foundation of everything that we do, because that's one of the beauties of digital marketing is that ability to measure. And the measurement can vary from, we can even bring it into the offline environment, right into the analog environment. Not all the time, but most of the time. So without analytics, something even simple as like return on ad spend or cost of acquisition, while these terms are ubiquitous among agencies, it's rare that clients actually have a good measure of that. And it's also good to understand that, while I'm here proselytizing measurement and data, accuracy is not perfect. I mean, with certain techniques, we can get to about 95% accuracy. That's assuming everything's well configured. Something we use is called server-side tracking. Basically, one of the things is using HTML cookies instead of JavaScript. They last longer, among other things. But where was I going with this? General accuracy is around 80% without server-side tracking, but that's again assuming everything's configured correctly, right? All your buttons are configured.
Yeah. Do you think that what type of company is looking for that? Because I mean, I deal with companies that have varying degrees of care when it comes to analytics and stuff. I have 6 relatively successful companies that I tried to help them with their Google Analytics, setting up in GTM and just get something basic happening. But there's not a lot of buy-in in that. Even though they're relatively known and successful, they're really not focused on analytics. And I don't know how common that is, but I don't have a lot of those conversations with even companies or other agencies that we work with. A few that are more
Yeah, I
established.
could see that, not understanding it or not being aware of what it can do, and kind of maybe lessens its importance. And not all of our clients care about it that much. We have one client in particular that may not care as much about it, but ultimately it's how we see um, our world, and it's how we see our digital marketing efforts, and it's
Yeah.
literally how part and parcel to how we strategize and measure the efficacy of our
Yeah, it's your,
of our
like you said, it's your foundation. I mean, that's what sets you apart, and so when you're going to work with companies that do care about it, mostly, I would assume. I wonder how much of it is
yeah, and it's
how
also
much of it is budget and stuff too, or time that people think there's an investment there that they can't handle.
yeah. I mean, there can be, well, so it depends. You're a web developer, right? So you also do UX and UI and web design. So you're kind of come in all one package, and you have deep experience, in web development, and then also in other sectors, right? Like I heard from a previous podcast that you were trying to get your Series 7.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Mike,
a long time
yeah,
ago.
yeah. So like anyway,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, quite impressive. But so as far as cost, right? And my point is here, you can see the whole picture of from inception of the idea to actually like the day-to-day management of a website. And so you're probably, I know working with you, um, you run a very efficient group, and you try to simplify things as much as possible. And this is where, and the cost of analytics come in. If you have one website, right, with one domain, and your store is on that domain, and everything's linked correctly, and it's built nicely, and it's maintained, and it doesn't, it has like 25 pages instead of 350. um, and the upfront cost of analytics, is there, but it's relatively minimal for a well configured, well built website.
Yeah.
If we are approaching a client with a complicated website that's been patched together by their team that may have their hearts in the right place, but they're just not web developers and web maintenance people, and now they have their domain, and then they have another domain, they use a third party purchasing system, and then they have another scheduling system, and then they have an app that they bought off the shelf, and now all of a sudden the user's going through 3 or 4 different domains. Then we start doing cross-domain tracking, and the hours go from, let's say, configuring a clean, simple website. You can roughly say between 5 and 15 hours of analytics time as a general, range. And then a complicated website, the one I just described, with multiple domains and multiple off-the-shelf systems. I mean, the hours can go into 20, 30, 40, to the point where we sometimes recommend that people, rebuild their website or clean it up before we even go in. So that's another challenge I would say, to analytics is making sure that your website's nice and organized, which ties to everything else, right? This is what makes kind of analytics foundational. It ties back to maintenance. Maintaining one domain is much more cost effective than maintaining 4.
Yeah.
Sending a user through one clean, seamless experience of one domain that, everything kind of flows together is more cost effective. You have higher conversion rates. You build trust, you build authenticity. I mean, nothing's worse than having a client go from one domain, the main domain that they like, and they're about to buy something, and then they go to some third party shopping system that, maybe just gray, and it has a different domain.
Right.
Now all of a sudden trust is gone. So anyway, that's a complicated way of saying that analytics does have an upfront cost, but maintenance is pretty minimal, because we just go in there and check every few
So
months
once
to make
once
sure
it's
things
set
are
up,
working.
it kind of runs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you check it every few months, and then of course, if there's any changes in page additions or buttons, we go ahead and test those
Yeah.
things and configure and test those things. But outside of that,
Do you get into
it's
do you
not
get
as
into like split testing and all that stuff like on the content side and
yes. Yeah, we absolutely can, like, yeah, A/B testing or multivariate testing, and this is a perfect example of where like statistics come into play, because the A/B test is more or less a t-test. Technically, it's called the student's t-test. It was developed by a guy in the Guinness factory, where they were trying to they were trying to figure out a way where they could use math to ensure that each batch of Guinness was good, right? So it's like, how many beer cans or bottles at the time probably do we need to taste, or do we need a sample to ensure that the whole batch is indeed good? And so this was published as the student's t-test, as a pseudonym, because it was developed at Guinness. But I mean, the thing though, I mean, don't quote me on this, but this technique has got to be like 150 years old. I mean, it's a basic test, and I've never seen it used. I mean, we haven't really been around for that long, so we're about 3 years in. But I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I've seen clients be like, yeah, we did an A/B test, and it's like, on version A, we got 40 engagements, and on version B, we got 30 engagements, and 40 is bigger than 30, so 40 must be the one. And it's pretty easy to run a basic statistical test to measure the efficacy of that, because that difference between 30 and 40 may not actually be meaningful. Statistically, it may actually be the same thing. So, yes.
so let's go back to this Guinness thing. So how does that translate? So how does that translate to A/B testing?
Yeah, great. Yeah. So essentially, A/B testing is, you want to know, right? How many, if we show this, let's say we show it to 1,000 people or 100 people. Let's use 100. So we 50 CA, 50 CB, right? And out of those 50, we have 20 conversions in A and 25 conversions in B, right? So without using stats, we can know that, okay, well, we saw 25 conversions, in B, and 25 conversions is more than 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know, we can assume that B is more effective, but without actually running the numbers, using this t-test, right, comparing the means, like, which would be maybe average conversion rate, you really don't know. And it may not matter with small companies, right? It's just kind of an exercise. But if you think about it, going into like medicine or any other place where you definitely want to know statistics. If you're spending, let me back up a little bit. So if you're if you're doing like 50 users, 50 audience members, and on one and 50 audience members on the other, it may not matter, right? Because the cost of running these A/B tests is maybe, I don't know, say $100 a piece or a couple $100 a piece, right? But let's say you're spending $50,000 a month on advertising, right? And you're spending $25,000 on one ad and $25,000 on another. You definitely would want to know which has a more meaningful effect, right? Or if they're the same as well, right? Because this can save on design time, social media management time, and whatever, right? Or let's say you want to go from 50,000 to 150,000, right? You want to know what's working and what's not. So using statistics is important, but it's rarely used. I mean, I haven't really come across anyone that's using it. I'm sure the big firms are, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. If you're spending millions, I would hope so.
Yeah. They'd be a little more sophisticated.
Maybe not. Maybe there's an opportunity there.
I don't know.
Hey guys, here's a 150-year-old technique that we can use to leverage, old math.
Yeah. Interesting. I used to have, when I did this as a side thought, I used to, back in the 2000s. I did pay-per-click a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had my own methods. I even taught people how to do these things. And I had this weird thing. I don't know. I just made it up off the top of my head. It was to split test ads. I called it the 6-pack method. So I'd create 6 ads. I don't know why 6, but it just seemed to work for me. And that's how we'd start. And then we'd, figure out which ad did the best, and we sort of start to boil it down and zero in on which the best ad was. And then we'd just start to go down to like two ABs, or, just a split test. But that was how I tried different ideas and then start to slowly boil it down. There was no scientific thought behind that at all, but it worked. It was something that I don't know if that has any basis in anything, but it just, for my methods, it always, and I did this hundreds and hundreds of times, I would always be able to zero in on a group of ads that did better than the others, and then make variations of those. But split testing was super important back then. I even got into multivariant on landing pages and things like that. There was actually, I was trying to think of the name of it. There was a really popular, it wasn't multivariant, but it was even more complex than multivariant. It was, I'm thinking of the name. I'm trying to think of it. I haven't probably thought about it in 15 years. But there was some tools back then that you could do these really complex models to test your software and stuff you could use. But anyway.
I think it can be useful, and sometimes, you don't. I had a biomechanics professor that would kind of say his like favorite quote. He's like, I'm paraphrasing here, but he would say like, I love it when you don't need stats to really understand the results, right? So like sometimes it's not like stats are the holy grail or the only tool to use for this kind of stuff. But yeah, like if you're, you can use intuition sometimes, and sometimes you may not even have the numbers or the kind of the subject pool, if you will, right? The amount of users to really be able to detect a difference. Or if you're seeing like
Taguchi testing. Taguchi, Taguchi. Oh, that's a blast from the past. I had to look it up. It was bothering me.
Can you tell me? But yeah, tell me more about Taguchi.
Oh, Taguchi. It's just I couldn't even. Here, we're just gonna do some Taguchi method. Is a statistical method, sometimes called robust. Let's see.
Designs method. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it was.
No, I'm reading about it here on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, but it was very complex.
Well, this is a perfect example. So yeah, this is you were actually using some sort of statistical measure.
Because we were really into that. Because I was in affiliate marketing, and so we were always testing all kinds of stuff.
That's phenomenal. Yeah.
So let's talk about. So one of the things that just kind of round off this conversation about. Analytics, A/B split testing, Taguchi. Now that I remember the name,
Taguchi,
is that, and I find this with my own websites even today. It's like, when do we even pay attention to A/B? When does it even matter? Because you have to have, number one, things have to fall into place. You have to have targeted traffic, right? And you have to have a certain amount of traffic. Like if you get 2 visitors a month, you're probably not worrying about A/B split testing. So do you find that there's a threshold, or there's some kind of criteria there that where somebody can start benefiting from either doing analytics in general or A/B?
So analytics in general, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool data scientist, so I would say anybody benefits from that pretty much right off the bat. And there's no reason not to do that, because it's digital marketing. You can measure, so why not? And you can't manage what you can't measure, right? I can't remember who said that. It was anyway, management guru. But and so A/B testing, yeah, I think like especially if the audience here is kind of in the entrepreneur small business scene, I would say a good time to think about A/B testing is when you feel or the data show that you've been meeting your goals. Because I've had clients be like, hey, we need to do A/B testing. And I'm like, well, look, you're not even, for example, I'm just, making things up. Like you should be, you're not even focusing your resources on SEO. You're not writing content, or, I want to test this ad. And it's like, well, we want to A/B test this ad. And I'm like, what's your budget, right? How much money do you have to burn? Right? Or are you trying to conserve resources and maximize conversion? So I would say A/B testing is a good thing to do once you feel that you've met kind of your minimum business goals, and you have taken care of any other relevant digital marketing channel, whether that's, social media like LinkedIn versus Facebook, depending on what you're doing, SEO, content generation, web design, analytics, for sure. Yeah. Has to be in place. Yeah. Because people like to, a lot of, I think early stage clients and early stage businesses have been like, oh, why aren't we doing A/B testing? I'm like, you're still getting off the ground, man. Like, we need to focus on the basics.
Right.
You've got people going through 4 different domains. Like I can tell you right now, without any sort of statistical analysis, that you're losing people.
Yeah.
Just not.
And there's also this kind of, I mean, if you get 100% of your traffic going, let's just example, 100% of your traffic going through one ad and one landing page, and you've got this razor thin margin, like a little bit of profit. You're going to,
right.
You're kind of investing, you're kind of risking some of that when you start split testing that, or maybe you just split test 10% of it or something. You have to be thoughtful about that, because it can backfire.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of, especially small businesses underestimate the sophistication, or at least I would say the expertise, and then the money required to really run successful ads over the long term, especially competitive industries. I mean, for better or for worse, the platforms like Google Ads, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, LinkedIn, they make it really easy for businesses to advertise. But to test, but to do things successfully costs a lot of money and requires expertise. And to test things requires you to be comfortable to lose money.
Yeah.
I'm paying for that test, essentially.
True.
I don't know. I mean, what has your experience been with A/B testing and with your clients in the web dev? In the
web dev world, I don't run into it much. I mean, I've used, I got clients that like to use our heat maps and, plugins and stuff like that. They probably do some stuff internally. I don't really get involved with that too much. I'm more of, I get involved when they need to tweak something or on a technical side to help them improve conversions, like make changes to the site or whatever. But I don't, once in a while I get a little bit involved with the Google Analytics, where I get involved with, some of that, just helping implement a lot of that, but more on the implementation side, not on the analysis or really getting involved with that, the side of the strategy of that and all that. But, well, I don't know how we got on the track with analytic, but I love that. I think because I really love that topic and can relate to it.
Yeah, I can geek out.
And we could probably keep talking about it. But I really did want to get into a little bit. One of the things I like to talk about is the challenges around things. I think we can learn a lot from another business person, other entrepreneurs' challenges, and how that looked and how was overcome, or what you've learned from it. And I think we were going to talk a little bit about, because we kind of set it up in the beginning that we have known each other for a little while and we worked together, and we did literally work together. We still technically are connected. And we've done some projects together. So let's talk a little bit about that, like how, what from your perspective, how that went, how that's going, and maybe some of the challenges around building a web team in general, digital marketing team, and partnering with others to help you do more?
Yeah, so first of all, yeah, partnering with you and Unified Web Design has been awesome.
Thank you.
So, yeah, a little plug for Matt here for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you have, again, kind of going back to where I was speaking before about your experience, right? I mean, you were doing PPC in the early 2000s using the Takaguchi method, obviously something I'm learning today.
you're gonna dig into
great.
that.
And yeah, you've been in insurance, in finance, you've led teams, you've been a consultant, you've been an employee, and you definitely seem to have a good handle on the different types of languages and kind of platforms that develop people can use to develop websites. So that's part of the reason why I was interested in working with you in the beginning, and still am, and it kind of keeps me motivated to keep working with you. So I think that has been good. I think some of the challenges that I've run into in that partnership in particular, that's not unique to this partnership, is finding the right client that, again, has the resources to be able to put money into their website.
Yeah.
Kind of working with these entrepreneurs, startup companies, early stage businesses. Sometimes it can be just a resource thing, right? And it's hard. Sometimes people really just don't have money, but other times it's kind of, it's just hard to convince people, be like, you need to invest in your website now. And you need to build it cleanly from the get-go, because when you are successful, you're gonna be spending tens of thousands of dollars fixing it, especially if you have traffic, especially if you want to do some A/B testing.
Yeah, right.
And if you have money and you believe in your business, why not invest that money now? Because it's just going to give you a chance to make it. And what you don't want to do is not make it and be like, oh, I wish I spent an extra couple dollars building a nice website from the get-go.
So the challenge here is convincing somebody, clients, that they need to invest up front, or they need to invest in a web team or a maintenance or whatever. And that's one of the things we've had conversations with over the last few years about, can we go a little cheaper on that? Because you want to help this client, but they aren't willing to give up their budget, or they don't see the complete value in keeping their website in good shape. But that, I'm a mate. That's one of our biggest things that we do is maintenance, and it's really critical for a lot of agencies and companies and maybe it's just some of it's peace of mind, but we've brought companies out of doom where their site is like doomed, where they were crashing, they're trying to do promotions, their site's down for half a day, and we had to come in and rebuild their infrastructure, move them to a different host or whatever. But if your site's not maintained, well taken care of, that's where you can end up if you don't have somebody on staff or somebody to advise you to help you with your site. I mean, so that's what I'm hearing, is that it sounds like that's difficult though too, because there's other things competing in someone's budget, a company's budget. There's other things competing. Like it's a little bit easier decision to spend it on marketing or developing products, or is that?
Yeah, there can be that, but there can be also the thing of, and I don't know everybody's, kind of personal finances, but it's also like, if you're starting a business, you got to be ready to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to maybe work more than you bargained for, or spend more money than you bargained for, like if you really don't have the money or the time, then, maybe consider not doing the business at all. But, I mean, you've had a number of entrepreneurs on this podcast, and you yourself are an entrepreneur, and that it takes way more time than you wanted to. It takes way longer than you ever envisioned.
Yeah. You're going to be investing time or money big time in the beginning.
And money.
Yeah. And sacrificing.
And so,
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to a client, somebody the other day, and they're like, they've spent a considerable amount of resources in a sophisticated website that continues to need work, and it has a ton of potential. And now they're going to be switching or wanting to switch to like one of those off-the-shelf, quote-unquote, DIY solutions like Wix or Squarespace, right? And it's, yeah, exactly, yeah. You're taking it like 10 steps back. So I think that's been the kind of, the challenges of our partnership has been just like finding the right clients who understand and appreciate that they need to invest in these things.
Yeah.
The digital marketing.
And what it speaks to for me, and this is kind of why, you can go out and find help, cheap help. Matt's not as cheap as I have established price points, and I do that because I have to. I've always priced this a little more premium for reasons, because I want to be able to invest in a good team. I'm looking for a particular client. I want clients that do care about what we're doing, because you don't have to convince everybody. Some people are, oh, okay, no problem. You just quote them and please. But yeah, so our relationship right now, as it stands, we've done projects, we've done, I'm still there to help and all this stuff, but we're waiting for that. We're looking for that golden project that where it's a perfect fit for what we offer at our price point and what you're doing, and that synergy. But this is a beautiful thing about relationships. We've talked about networking, relationships, building, and partnerships on this podcast before, and I talk about it on social media here and there. But the beautiful part about it is this relationship, we've done things together, we're going to continue to, but it's not what we're doing today necessarily. In 2 months, I might get a message, an email from David. Matt, here it is.
A postcard.
Need you to look at this. A postcard. Yeah, but it's something that it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, or it could happen in 2 years. But we've already built this relationship, and we already kind of like each other. We're a little bit opposites in some ways. I'm a little more laid back than you are, I think.
We're complementary.
We're complementary, yeah. but that's super valuable. So, and I appreciate I working with David. I'm talking to the audience now. He's been amazing. The smart guy. But I think that's, those are, I only want to work with a certain type of agency or person. Like I want to be, you have to have, it's a real relationship. It's friends, you got to feel like you're friends. And I like people that care, like you care about results. You care about your client's successes and all that. You're not just in it you want to make a little money, but you're not just, and that's not what you're leading with. You want to help people and that's what I garner or.
Totally. Yeah. And you're, I think could say the same thing about you. And this is, you care and you're expert, but, talking about this in the entrepreneurship lens, small business lens, it's like, money is tight when you're starting a company, but, buying cheap and going cheap is not always the best route. It's usually the worst route, right? Like, we know these sayings like buy cheap, buy twice, you get what you pay for. And especially in the digital marketing world, you can go super cheap. But then how are you standing out?
That's how you're standing out.
How are you going to convert?
And things can go south eventually, even on the tech side. Totally. I think of one particular client we have. I think we started working with them like 2.5 years ago. But when they came to us, they are already a multi-million-dollar business, right? They have hundreds of sales going through WooCommerce every month. Nice. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a higher priced item. And, but they made some bad decisions about their underlying website tech. And they probably, I don't know if they got it for cheap. I don't know if they just were, maybe it was also just, sometimes not every business person is tech savvy and informed and knows. They just don't know like what could go wrong. They don't have that experience. You learned, but but we were able. But that was a situation where it was affecting the site speed. It was affecting, and they're super dependent on Google traffic, organic traffic. 90% of their revenue is coming from Google, and they had just a lot of problems. And there was another situation where we had to move them to another host, rebuild over it was a year and a half process of slowly recoding their, because it's a situation where you can't just, because they everything's tight. SEO's tight. Everything can have an effect, and you got to slowly and carefully improve the code. You can't just throw in a new theme and hope for the best. But we slowly had to roll them out of this framework they had. They were on not only like an outdated framework. It was terrible. But we did it. We created a roadmap. We got them out of that, and now they're in a beautiful place. But that is what can happen. And there's other stories like that, where if you don't invest or find the right people in the beginning, it can have negative impacts, thousands of dollars, who knows how much, in your revenue. Because once you do start, that revenue starts growing, that's when those issues magnify and
totally.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, this is super important, and I think maybe you're of this opinion as well, but sometimes I'll advise clients, and it's like, well, if you don't have the resources to build what you want correctly, go smaller. Right? Invest in what you can afford and do it right. Go small, from a website standpoint, build a couple of pages, 1 or 2 pages, and then go with someone that, that is willing to be like, okay, I will build you 2 pages, and I will build it in a way that we can expand on it down the road, right? Instead of doing something like, I'm going to build a Wix site, and now I'm, pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and now I want to expand, and it's like, we're going to take a year and a half. We got to be careful.
Right.
We can't just
it's a whole thing.
Redirect everything.
That'd be a nightmare going from like Wix. You're making like $5 million a year through your Wix site and try to map that to like a new build. Holy man. So what I'm hearing is what your issue was, what your challenge was. And obviously it's monetary from the client's perspective, whatever. So are you working on things? And I know you got some new things we talked about, like your new markets, new ideas, that you're opening yourself up to new opportunities. What's going on right now with David and Ad Science Lab?
Yeah. So we're tapping into more of the pharmaceutical and behavioral health industry, specifically trying to use programmatic advertising to generate investor funding, because the investment climate, unless you're building something that has AI in the name, is hard to get funded. So we're working, we're in talks with some companies there. We're also working in the new psychedelic space.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. So, my background as a cognitive neuroscientist, this is a kind of a natural door opener for me, because the market is, pretty new, highly regulate. Well, for what exists is highly regulated. And the people that are in this space really do care about making a change, because psychiatry hasn't really come up with any new medication in the last more or less 50 years. There's been iterations of different kind of medications, but psychedelics show some promise, especially in PTSD for vets. That's kind of, So yeah, that's kind of where we're working with a number of companies. Challenges there are still the same. I mean, the funding in the psychedelic space has crashed considerably in the last, I would say, like year-ish, a year and a half-ish. But it's slowly coming around. I think there was a lot of excitement with investors, and people would get funded. And let me know if I'm going too off
No, it's
topic
fine.
here. But people would get funded for basically having ideas. There's a company that raised, I believe, $250 million just on intellectual property, no actual products,
Wow.
right? So that's really not happening anymore. Now everybody's just kind of, a lot of investors are waiting to see what kind of comes out in the next few years, what people are going to be developing. Many people are waiting for MDMA to become approved by the FDA and for PTSD, and that's projected to happen mid next year, maybe earlier, maybe later, depending on who you talk
Yeah.
to. I mean, everyone's got an opinion in this space, but they're making some pretty good traction there, and it seems to be a bipartisan effort as far as that, because it does affect vets. Incidentally, I was at the psychedelic science conference over the summer, and one of the keynote speeches was from Rick Perry, who's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. And was very, and it spoke, you know, promoted psychedelic
Really?
therapy quite a bit because of that. So,
Hmm.
so I think that's going to go through. So that'll probably change the investment climate quite a bit. Kind of some proof that things can be, once MDMA starts getting prescribed, then all the other drug manufacturers are going to have a little bit more
Put more
faith in
money,
the
put
future.
more money
Yeah,
into it.
yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah. So that seems like
yeah,
the perfect synergy. Like I like synergy is like my favorite word. Um, the perfect blend, the perfect thing for you
totally.
to get into or to go in that direction because you have that background. You have obviously a passion for it. It's something that can have a really positive impact on the world or has the potential to, right? And how does that tie into the agency side of things?
Hmm.
Are you looking to intertwine the two somehow, or you're
Yeah, so we're basically positioning ourselves as an expert for these types of companies, whether that's new drug manufacturers, right? People who are trying to take existing psychedelics and make something new out of it, or people who are trying to create psychedelic assisted therapy healing centers, which are going to become legal here in Colorado in some time. I actually advised the Department of Regulatory Affairs on product research and data, because they're creating the regulations for these psychedelic assisted therapy centers right now, or going to be. So we're basically positioning ourselves as an expert marketing agency or firm that knows all things marketing, right? Has good partners for web dev, and and then we understand the science, right? And we understand the mental health, the behavioral health therapeutics that come along with
hmm,
this. So it's also not only brings authenticity, but also just trust, right? I mean,
yeah,
when you're a client looking for marketing services, and especially in something that's going to be very
right,
regulated, highly looked over by the government, and that has potential for, you know, amazing outcomes in people's mood and cognitive state and lifestyle, but also has the potential to have things go, the other way. Bad
hmm,
outcomes are definitely a real
yeah.
risk. And so to have somebody that understands your business and the foundation of your business, and then also understands marketing, I think is a great advantage, right?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think a lot of if there's agencies struggling out there, or um, you're trying to be everything to everybody or whatever. It's
Yeah.
super. Like I've got a new niche. Like we have an insurance site up now, and
Yeah, good.
I think I showed you that at one point. Um, we haven't gotten too much traction there just because we're extremely busy in every other area, but it's
That's great.
something that I'm like, at some point I will do that. But the idea there was I have that insurance background and I can speak to speak. I understand the needs. I understand what they care about and, that whole environment. And so if I can take that knowledge, I can talk to them as in other agencies or insurance companies, whatever. I can now offer them tailored services and tailored advice based on all that, on building stuff for them. So it's the same way for you. You kind of have that trust is there right away because you're talking to your people,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if looking for anybody listening to this that you're struggling, think about your background. Like, is there an opportunity there? Is there something? There's something that you're uniquely talented or have the knowledge around that there's a market out there, and can you figure out how you could serve that market and make that connection? That's
agreed. Yeah, I want to support that message for sure. Yeah. And don't be afraid to fail.
Right.
And don't give up. Yeah. But yeah, for sure. I mean, most people have some sort of unique specialty and understanding of something. Like you said, you have insurance expertise and web development expertise, right? So it
makes sense. But I also have, for me, the kind of my differentiator too has been just my marketing background on the web and e-commerce and all that. So that kind of also is a thing for me. But Taguchi. Looking for something that's kind of outside, it's an industry instead of just, I build websites or I
For sure, yeah, and that's been a kind of a pleasure, working with you in the past, is because you understand, SEO, you understand analytics, the importance of analytics, you understand how social marketing works.
Taguchi methods.
Taguchi, yeah, of course. You should consider calling this podcast the Taguchi.
I might. The revelation, Taguchi revelation.
Yeah, but yeah, for sure. I mean, this all helps, right? It makes the conversations go easier. Yeah. You don't have to explain things.
Exactly. And that's how I that's what I think it just naturally sets me apart, is that I have that deeper understanding of the marketing side and the business side, and being a business person too, not just I build websites and code things. It's I can actually have a conversation because I understand what the pain points of a business is, or what they need, and what when they say throw marketing terms around, I might understand what that means, or the impacts of those things. But so we could talk for hours, and we are actually at the top of the hour almost. Yeah. So if somebody wants to learn more about David Caha. If somebody wants to learn more about you or Ad Science Lab or what you do, want to get in touch with you, where can they find you on the web, and where do you hang out? Do you hang out on LinkedIn? Where do you hang out?
Yeah, great. Yeah. AdscienceLab.com is a great way to get hold of us or hold of me. We're on my SEO guy's on a warpath to create more blogs. So we're pumping about 2 blogs a month. So, which I'm excited about because, I love education.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's a very education focused blog. And then, I'm hanging out on LinkedIn. So we post regularly there. And ultimately, I just love talking to people. I love networking. I love meeting people. So I'm always excited to have any of your audience members reach out to me and chat and jump on a call and just, brainstorm and things like that.
Awesome. Well, Thanks for sharing today, David, and thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Thanks, Matt. It was an honor.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.